I think people just overlook the basics, the real basics, like just being able to recognize and appreciate people for who they are and the works that they're bringing to the table. Having any kind of acknowledgement of somebody's work and life integration, and just understanding that things happen and life happens, and I guarantee you they will return the favor. And I think just a lot of little missing things in leadership because of people get siloed very quickly.
I'm Dr. Joey Fawcett, host of the Work Positive podcast, coaching you to create a positive work culture that grows people and profits. So does your work culture just happen? It just grows on its own, and sometimes you hardly recognize it? Or do you design your work culture, building an environment that works well? My guest on this episode of the Work Positive podcast helps companies and organizations, just like yours, design and build a culture that works. She's the founder and chief operating officer at EBO Consulting Incorporated, specializing in management coaching, startup support, and administrative services to help businesses just like yours optimize their operations. And who doesn't want to optimize their operations, right? So what do you say we design your work culture and build an environment that works well, positively, on this episode of the Work Positive podcast? Work Positive Nation, I'm delighted to share with you Emily Berliner. Emily, welcome to the Work Positive podcast. I'm delighted to have you on.
It is absolutely wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me, Dr. Joey.
Coming to us from the great state of Alaska. See, people think I'm going to say the great state of where they live whenever. Thanks for getting up early to be with us today. What is it about culture, Emily, that first attracted you? In other words, what's your origin story? Because you're obviously a superhero, right?
Yeah, I try. I started EBO Consulting in 2018. And the reason I started it is because I saw this gap in the market when it came to small business owners lacking support that they couldn't afford. They couldn't, not being able to afford full-time support, not being able to have the foundations that you need to build your business, and didn't know a lot of the business formation side of things, but I knew a lot about the administrative and operational side of things. So I stepped in initially in a couple of different early clients as admin organizational support, where I would literally help with like office organization, like in-person type activity, and realized quickly that really wasn't where my strengths lied. So I evolved into something more remote, being able to operate completely online and providing administrative operational support, but in a more cohesive way. So I rolled out the Engage, Build, Optimize, the different categories, different divisions, brought on our CEO, Mitch Laird, in 2019. And from there, I don't think workplace culture was on my mind at all. We were more, because Mitch actually happens to be my spouse. So when we collaborated—
Did you bring him on as a spouse and a CEO at the same time?
You'd think, right?
Matchmaking.
We were married first, but so after I left my full-time role, I spent like 2018 to 2019 working like full-time with the business and full-time with another job. And then in 2019, I left that job, resigned fully, did EBO full-time. And then by the fall, Mitch had left his job and was full-time. And we were like, well, let's just see and did not have a plan B.
And you're still married today?
We're still married today.
Yeah. Way to go, Mitch.
No, we're good. No, so he joined us in 2019 and it was just the two of us and we were just building foundations. We got to, then COVID hit. So there was a lot of just, nothing was secure, or we didn't know what was going on. Nobody
came unglued then, right?
Yeah. So then 2023 rolled around, things were starting to get a little bit better. So we got like 2020 to 2022 was just fixing all the stuff that got kind of broken. And then we started rebuilding, getting back out there. Things were really digital at that point still. So it was working in our favor.
Yeah.
And then in 2023 to 2024, I got into the podcasting world a little more. And that is when I met Judith. And so 2024, Judith came on as a contractor in November of last year. And that's when my brain started thinking about culture because she introduced me to this whole other mindset of what it means to work with somebody. And she didn't, not as an employer relationship because she's a contractor for the company. But I realized how adamant she was about having a weekly meeting and maybe having like monthly chats that weren't work related, something cultural related, maybe like actual cultural related because she happens to live in Mexico and is from Cuba.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah, this is sure. She just brought all this energy, all this. And she was so, one day she sat down and she was, I am so grateful. I don't feel any toxicity. I don't feel anxiety coming to when I talk to you. I love meeting with you. I love the work we're doing. And I was like, it just started making me go, well, that's impactful. Like, wow, that really means something. And so I started with her, we've started evolving the culture by design concepts through the past year and a half, or I guess the past year, because we are literally 25. But in July of 2025, we brought on, incidentally, her partner, her husband, who actually happens to be an operations specialist. So he joined us. She's a marketing person. So they serve as our marketing director and operations director based in Mexico, and they live together and they work remotely just like we do. So it's a really unique dynamic, but the dynamic has made me think so much about what it means to have a culture of, and I'm not going to use the term workplace and I'm not going to use the term company, nor am I going to use the term work culture. I'm just going to use the term culture because it's life culture. It's like all of it. And my dream was to build an entity, an organization that allowed for potential contractors to step in and live in this environment that allowed them the flexibility that I've built for myself and my husband. And it's been very intentional. And now I'm able to like translate that into my team environment. So, even though this is not like an employee-employer relationship, the team is all in. They all want to participate in the team meetings weekly. They want to jump on syncs in the middle of the day. They're happy to we have 5 lines of communication, they're on. Seriously, like it's either WhatsApp, iMessage, email, Google Chat, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Messenger, all the things. But that helps, that coheses us, of course. So I think going back to your initial question of the origin story and the culture, that's when they came into my life and started being a part of EBO Consulting. That is when I started really paying more attention, specifically starting with Judith, but then Abdi really added to that layer of, hey, now there's a team of 4 and we need to stay connected. We need to integrate our work and life because that's something really, really important to me. We need to have alignment. All of these things need to be in place. And so that's when I was like, okay, how do I best do that internally? And then, of course, normally what I like to do is practice things internally anyway. And if they work, then we can turn around and provide that service to other organizations or businesses that might need it. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, we seem to feel like it's a very simple concept. It's just like how you attract and like retain people and how you can keep the positive momentum and the toxicity out of the workplace. So it's not anything like groundbreaking. I'm just trying to change the future of work because
it's nothing groundbreaking. We're just changing the future.
Big deal. I don't like to toot my own horn, but I truly like
another walk on the tundra.
I think it's just not making it too scary because I think that's what we do a lot, right? We feel like, okay, how do we change the future of this? So it takes it's going to take the village, and I'm like, well, there can be a spark somewhere, right? And so I feel like maybe just sparking what you're doing, that is such a big. It's fueling something that is a complete necessity because things are not how they were 10 years ago. I mean, it's just the world
10 weeks ago.
No, and isn't that everything is so rapid. So in saying all of that, my goal with the business as now having a solid team is to ensure that our culture is intentional and designed to work for all of us, but not just for the business, but for the individual, not just professionally either, but personally. So it's
Yeah, I
yeah,
like that. I hear you using
good
the word
points.
intentional several times, Emily.
Yeah.
And I know that you intentionally use the word intentional. So often it seems like, well, culture's just what happens around here. Culture is just what I inherited when I moved into this company. In some ways, you've had a blank canvas where you could really create that intentional culture. What is it about culture that benefits from this level of intentionality you're talking about?
Creates environments where people want to be. They want to be productive. They want to give their best selves. They are able to be innovative and driven at times that work for them.
Mm,
Simple applications of recognizing somebody's skill set and saying, if this is something you're comfortable with, but that's not something you're comfortable with, I'm not going to push you into a situation unless you're interested in that. All of those things, in my opinion, have led to happier, calmer team members who
mm,
actively want to work, who don't care, like will tell me more times than I need to hear that I don't mind doing that at 10. Just they don't. It's just everything, and they said that's because we want to do it in that way. So
mm,
they're the decision makers.
mm,
Everyone is a completely autonomous. Everyone's autonomous. Everyone is on that same tab, on that same page, is involved in every communication that needs to be involved with everybody, of course. So it's just keeping everybody aligned and keeping everybody satisfied has led to, I can't even tell you how much joy in me personally, but like within the business, it
mm,
changes what we represent. So now we have gone from we're these admin, organizational, foundational people to being able to say, hey, we actually really have something we can share with you that's worked for us, which is this culture by design concept, of course.
mm.
So basically, yeah, intentionally creating that workplace where people want to be. I keep going back to the intentionality word because
Sure.
it's making something work for your environment, and
Mm,
it can be replicated,
mm,
and you will see productivity in your environment and your team.
mm,
um, it kind of depends on lots of different factors. A lot of people think culture means, we'll go back to like workplace culture, which is like, what do you think about what ping pong tables and pizza parties and things that are to me that is just silly. Let's be
uh,
very honest, like, just recognizing somebody's availability during the day. In my environment, we're very fortunate that we can give people time to do things when they need to, as long as, if they need to be available for a meeting, that's great, but that's 1 hour. If they want to work at 10 p.m. at night, that's fine. No micromanagement needed. But again, in my opinion, indicators of a healthy workplace.
mm,
And that's really what I'm promoting, is a healthy workplace that
mm.
Judith has said to me multiple times. She's not scared to, the Sunday scaries don't exist for her. She gets excited to work. She's like,
Uh,
hey, I'm here. Hey, just checking in. You don't need to check in with me. She goes, no, I want to. Like that. So again, what is my intentionality has turned into their intentionality. So it's
mm, mm.
it's a win-win.
It
Yeah.
is a win-win all the way around. You remind me of my friend Jody Thompson, who pioneered the ROW results-only work environment structure and framework. And your use of the word autonomy is one that Jody uses over and over and over. When we micromanage, it seems like we're treating people like children.
Exactly.
Like my kindergarten granddaughter, you got to watch her. She's going to hop out of that chair with the crayons and be writing on the wall or something. I mean, extreme, but you're going to wander off and go do something else, right? Because something shiny over there. But man, these are adults, and you have obliterated that artificial separation between personal and professional, right? And I loved hearing you say that this is what brings you joy. And if that's not a work positive culture, I don't know what is, because when you can bring joy into people's lives, not only is their work more productive, the company's more profitable. And oh, by the way, their home life is more productive and profitable. Their children are happier, and they all live in the village that EBO Consulting built.
100%. It really blows my mind because especially when I talk to Abdi's our operations director. He's the one that joined us most recently. And so like Judith has more, I think, of like the entrepreneurial spirit, whereas Abdi's more like behind the scenes and thinking things, the analytical mind. But recently I've noticed he and I have been thinking and chatting a lot about not just workplace culture, but just, guiding people and helping people with their career development, role development. Again, it kind of all ties together. But he'll send me articles and business and this, that, and the other. And I was like, I am turning you into a business owner. This is exactly like what we do when we're business owners. We're thinking all of these things. We're innovating all the time. We're sending these resources to ourselves, even like I send articles to myself all the time. So it's so exciting to see this evolution in him. And now being in this place of, because I say granted, but it helped him into a role where he is the director in his own realm, and he feels very compelled and wants to be a part of the business. And that's like huge deal to me. Like they actively want to be part of EBO. They are actively like printing off mugs and t-shirts and branding themselves and making sure that they are representing us in the most wonderful way possible. And I think it's just magic. We're really fortunate. I couldn't recreate it if I tried. And I think that's just, yeah.
They're fortunate as well to have someone who understands the joie de vivre of life and work walk hand in hand. So let's say it's time to add the next person to EBO Consulting, right?
Okay.
And we've given some identification of that position and things like that. So this conversation occurs around this new position with someone who's top talent, perspective. And they hear you describing this, and yet they think to themselves, based on their previous experiences, I don't know whether to believe this or not. Is this for real? Is it nirvana? Is she naive? Is she just woo-woo? What is she? How do you take this new paradigm, which is so much in demand today, and yet pierce a cynical veil that someone might bring to an interview conversation?
Beyond just me being me in the initial communication, I bring them to meet my team. That's the number one thing I can do, is ask the team to express what it is that's going on behind the scenes. And if they're willing to share, that tends to get the message out pretty clearly most of the time. I think in most circumstances that would, if that was me. But in this situation, in that circumstance, I would bring them in to meet the team and understand who we are, what we mean. We actually, interestingly, do have somebody that we're kind of in the process of potentially onboarding as a contractor to do some communications and networking work with us. So when she met me initially, she had actually reached out on LinkedIn, and she had acknowledged the work posts and different articles and stuff that we had been putting out, and that we seemed like a very progressive company that she wanted to meet with and pick my brain, essentially. So when I did that, of course, I met with her, and I think it's just my immediate approach when I meet people in these capacities, and there's any inkling of that we could have collaboration. I'm like, okay, let me just lay it out for you. This is the type of business we are. This is the type of person I am. I don't do these things. I don't believe in these things. I believe in these things. So it's nothing like personal related in that sense. It's just the way I do business. And I don't see business as being this. It doesn't have to be scary or boring or business can intertwine with your life. And a lot of people have been doing that now. And so that's just kind of where.
I like that. So you broaden the tent to say, hey, meet the rest of the team, and you'll hear the same story from them. I love that. Let me ask you a question. What if the key to growing your work culture hides in plain sight? Take the free Work Positive Culture Assessment to discover it. Get insights in less than 4 minutes that transform your culture so you grow people and profits. You just answer 13 simple questions and discover your culture stage, strengths, and personalized next steps. Get your free aha culture moment at workpositive.today. Go to workpositive.today right now. Emily Berliner is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive podcast. Hey, she just mentioned LinkedIn. In the show notes, you'll find her LinkedIn profile URL there. So go there, click that, send her a message, tell her how much you enjoyed this episode, and ask her some questions too. So let's say this new contractor joins EBO Consulting. All right. What are some of the first things you pay attention to ensure integrity? That is, you're doing what you promised to do.
Probably just follow through mostly on my side. So I'll give you an example with this particular individual. She showed me very early on that she could communicate, which was great. Simple communication. I asked her for something and she responded to my email with the request. So immediately I was like, okay, she's doing the things that I have asked her to do. And in turn, then I respond courteously and the dialogue begins and then things develop. And as such, I monitor the kind of communication style and the turnaround time on certain things. And so I just try to replicate that to the best of my ability that hopefully resonates with that person to show them that I am equally as serious about things. And so, for example, when I said I wanted to set up a contract with her to do some networking work for us, which we did, I said I would get that to her by the morning and I had it to her by 5 p.m. So when I'm serious about myself and turning it around, hopefully that translates. And it seemed to, because she did exactly what she needed to do and left it and I would have done this too, but she left it like 24 hours. And I'm glad she did that because that means she probably looked at the contract and actually paid attention to what was going on. And then she responded and signed, I countersigned, and we are now in an engagement, which is great. But you have to walk the walk. And I think that that's the problem with a lot of companies and a lot of leadership is they're not walking that walk of integrity. We are bound by our ethical values and the things that we stand for. And we're not we're not going to let that any negative like I said, go back to toxicity like that. I don't want that to integrate. And so I'm just very, very clear. I follow through. And if I find that the other person is not on that same page, that is totally fine. I will respectfully terminate the communication as best I can. Terminate's a big word, but graciously end the communication and find a different path. Sometimes it doesn't. And we've had both circumstances. What we're going through right now is wonderful. She's a catch. This individual is I'm really hoping it all works out. But I've had plenty of situations in the past well before Judith, I think even before we were ready for it, try to find contractors that were not a good fit at all. And that there were a lot of layers to it. And I think that that's something that I've been very cognizant of over the years is finding the good fit. And it doesn't everybody's good fit's going to be a little bit different. Depends on the company, depends on the business, depends on what they're doing. But for us, we have found our good fit. But I guarantee you that if you create the space for it, you will attract the right fits and it'll work for you. It's just providing the space and the encouragement and the trust and that integrity.
So what are some of the challenges that keep business owners and based on your experience, not only your own, but working with other business owners, what are some of the challenges that keep us from walking the talk and creating that space for the relationship to develop?
We just get inside our own heads. I think that people's egos and their roles get in the way. They think that that's not their job to do certain things. When you have top-down leadership, it tends to isolate people. I think people just overlook the basics, the real basics, like just being able to recognize and appreciate people for who they are and the works that they're bringing to the table. Having any kind of acknowledgement of somebody's work and life integration and just understanding that things happen and life happens. And I guarantee you they will return the favor. And I think just a lot of little missing things in leadership because of people get siloed very quickly. And I will tell you, I am living proof that you can do all the things. And I'm not tooting my horn, but I'm like, I can be like, I think it's actually quite impressive. So the other day, Judith and Abdi and I were on a call. And Abdi and Judith were kind of actually happened to be sat together, and I was watching Judith and Abby interact, literally sitting next to each other, and it's so professional. Like they're really able to like create that difference between like them having a coffee, taking the kids for a walk versus being in that environment of professionalism. And we've been able to encourage that. And that has been all of it has just been wonderful. But again, I've been able to kind of navigate that and see them grow and make sure that they're feeling like they're supported in that growth. And I'm now watching the two of them just become these wonderful directors that I just could never imagine. But I just happen to be that person that has kind of taken a little bit from a lot of different leadership experiences and people in my life and roles and applied them all, but it's not common. And I think you kind of have to let yourself do that to be effective. You've got to let yourself adapt to be adaptation. As long as you're adapting, you're fine.
And getting out of your own head helps you adapt. That's lovely. Emily Berliner is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive podcast. In the show notes is your website, eboconsultinginc.com. So Work Positive Nation, go there and click on that as soon as you get off the Peloton or stop the car or the truck in some cases. What are we going to find, Emily, when we go to eboconsultinginc.com? What are we going to find there?
You're going to find all of our services, which are in the process. Actually, we're doing some updates. So we will be rolling out a new website at the end of the year. But for now, everything applies. So don't you worry. You can look and see all the service things that we offer. There are tons of resources on there. There's links to all of our, I'm the one that does most of the podcasts. So links to my podcasts and articles. We also have links to some professional service providers in our community that we like to refer to people. There's some downloads available in our resources page, simple business documents, and you can also book a session with us. So if you are interested in having any kind of conversation related to business development, small business, startup, forming your business, branding, we kind of do a little bit of everything. So you can do there's a little book a consult button. When you click on that, it's going to take you to a discovery form. And the reason we do that specifically is that so people can give us as much information and we can be as prepared as possible instead of, not stepping into something we're not aware of. So we just make sure we collect information, and that way people it just helps us get a little bit more
absolutely
preparation for the potential discovery session. So, but yeah, you can do all of those things and you can find all of those things. You can also learn all about me and Mitch and Judith. Abdi's information is not on there yet, but it will be. And you can find all the things. But we think we're very proud of our website. But you will see something a little bit different in the new year. So just FYI.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Emily. So Work Positive Nation always wants to know from my guests. So I got to ask you, Emily Berliner, what's one thing Work Positive Nation can do starting today to create the kind of positive work culture we've been talking about?
Well, work with me.
That'll help.
I will help you learn about our methodology. So, one thing I will say, it's the simplest thing you can do is appreciate and recognize the people around you in your workplace. If you do happen to have teams or team members, staff, recognition is so underrated. And I'm not talking about giving them an award and a big certificate. We're talking acknowledge their presence, thanking people for a good email. I send my team members thank you emails all the time because I go, that's like, that was a really good email. Thank you for sending that. That's appreciation. That's recognizing them or standing in the kitchen, grabbing a coffee and be like, you did a great presentation earlier. Just wanted to let you know and walk away. Like, how much does that take? Absolutely nothing. So just start from the bottom. You're going to see a change. Get your leadership aligned. Make sure your work-life integration's in place. And I guarantee your team will be happy.
That's marvelous.
Hopefully.
Thank you so much, Emily. Emily Berliner has been my guest on this episode of the Work Positive podcast. Emily, thank you so much for this conversation today. I'm better for it, and I know Work Positive Nation is too. Thank you so much for your time and wisdom.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I'm so grateful you joined our conversation about creating positive work cultures that grow people and profits. Connect with me directly on LinkedIn today. Just search for Dr. Joey Fawcett, or you can click the link in your show notes. when you send your connection request, mention you're a Work Positive Podcast listener, because I want to give you a free digital copy of my Work Positive Team Edition book. It's a $19.95 value, but I want to share it with you free because it contains practical strategies that I personally use with clients to transform toxic work environments into thriving cultures. We explore in that book how to create a positive work culture, and we do so again in every episode of this podcast. Our LinkedIn connection allows you and me to directly talk about your specific challenges, so feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn. I personally read and respond to all those messages because I genuinely care about your work positive success. So go to LinkedIn and let's connect. Remember to mention you're a podcast listener to receive your free Work Positive Team Edition book. I look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the Work Positive Podcast.